Only 2 laps to go to half distance, and the Gary Wilmington Jaguar is starting to feel the strain of this long distance Pepsi 250 at Oran Park. He's dropping back behind the Jim Richards car by about a second a lap. It is now 27.46 seconds behind, and Robbie Francevic in 4th position is starting to gain upon him. The heavy car, Wilmington, is expected to be one of the first pit stops, because he'll obviously be harder on tyres, Bob Morris, than some of the lighter vehicles.
Well, it is a big car, but he only has one set of tyres, and he's driving the car neatly. He's doing a very good job, I will say that.
Fuel is in fact his main problem. 120 litre tank, but it only just get him past half distance with that big and very powerful engine.
50 laps down in the Pepsi 250, and Dick Johnson leads at halfway by 24.5 seconds from Jim Richards, with Gary Wilmington third, 27.46 seconds behind. Johnson has lapped all but the top 4 competitors and is lapping at about a 1 minute 17.88 second lap, and is very, very consistent.
And is coming up to lap Jim Richards' teammate, the new BMW 323 of Tony Longhurst. He's running further back in the field, and of course is running in the 2 to 3 litre class against such as the Toyota Supra earlier on, and the Volvo. That's a newly built car, now has centre lock wheels, the Longhurst car, like the 635 that's running in second place to Johnson, and also has the air jack system built in that the other Sprint car didn't have. Next year, we will probably see Jim Richards defending his touring car championship with 2 cars. The 323 will have a 2.5 litre engine, and he'll have the choice, depending on its suitability to the circuit, of a 325 or the 635. On some circuits, Frank Gardner, the team manager, expects the 325 to be quicker than the car Richards is presently using.
And Francevic now is starting to really throw the challenge out to Gary Wilmington. And the possibility is that Wilmington may decide to take his fuel pit stop at the end of this lap. Notice there is the power of the Jaguar through that tighter section just romps away from the Volvo, and it could possibly be that the fuel metering problems which the Volvo has been experiencing are slowing it down quite substantially in that section. Robbie Francevic, one of the most spectacular drivers to arrive in on the Australian touring car scene in recent years, flings his car across the dogleg, and see the amount of distance that he makes up on Wilmington. But notice, and he comes up the inside, and yes, Wilmington is going to the pits. Arm up. Just as an aside, did you notice the touch of smoke out of the back of Francevic's car as he came down to pass Wilmington? This is 3rd place. Gary Wilmington into the pits on lap 52 of a 100-lap event.
The main thing is that he's made half distance on his fuel, and I think that was a critical factor in the Jaguar's plan, was to get half distance, because it is quite a thirsty car, V12, the largest engine car in the race, and they'll be right now for the second half.
Dunlop tyre technicians check the tyre condition, but as Will Hagen's already pointed out, the team doesn't have any more tyres, so they're stuck with what they've got.
They have a choice. It's take it or leave it.
It's the first time they've really been able to run the 17-inch wheels fully. They've only had them in one other race, and on that occasion, one of the brake calipers gave problems, and so this is the first time, as I say, they've been able to do that, but they're now having problems getting Dunlop tyres that, of course, the Tom Walkinshaw team also wants for Bathurst, and Gary Wilmington feels that they've probably commandeered about all of them in the country at the moment.
And a long stop for fuel, 41.73 seconds for Gary Wilmington. That's most disappointing.
A lot of fuel to put in, because the tank would have been nearly empty. We've taken over 100 litres.
It wasn't a bad stop all the same. They didn't have any problems, and I think that's important, psychologically as well as anything else.
54, and it's Peter Brock holding 6th place. He's worked his way back up there after that early pit stop, and this is Gary Wilmington after his pit stop. He's in 7th, immediately behind Brock. So this is the dice. They are 1 lap down to the leading trio of Dick Johnson, Jim Richards, and Robbie Francevic in the Volvo. Brock 6th. In front of him in 66 is Kevin Bartlett. He's 5th. And 4th is number 30. That's Alan Grace. As into the pits goes Kevin Bartlett and the Mitsubishi Starion Turbo.
Thereby putting Peter Brock up into 5th position, and there's Bartlett in the pits. Bartlett out, and Peter Fitzgerald now gets into the motor car.
Only about 250 horsepower, Fitzgerald says. A bit disappointed with the power of the car currently.
Bartlett describes the power as 150 horsepower. That's how much it feels under his right foot, he says. What you might call a relaxed stop for the Mitsubishi team,
who are very busy, of course, with preparation for next weekend's Wins Sydney to Darwin Safari, with an air freight bill for 3 cars from France for Andrew Cow and Patrick Zanaroli, 2 cars and spares, of $104,000 around return airfare to France for their team.
And out comes the damage to Peter Fitzgerald. Kevin Bartlett car still with the front end, showing signs of its earlier skirmish.
Just seen Bartlett come in from 5th place out right now. It was the man who took over 5th place from him. It's Peter Brock into the pits, which puts, of course, Gary Wilmington back into 5th place and Brock further down the field. But when he comes out, he'll be in condition, ready to go. And remember that he's worked his way back up from far worse than 12th place up to finally 5th. And now has 43 laps to complete to see what he can do from here on. But of course we'll be trailing back towards 10th or 12th place.
And a slick stop for Brock, 29.2 seconds to take 2 churns of fuel and 4 tyres. That's good going, Peter Brock.
Look at the just left front, looked as though it had...
It's locked up every...
Is it the camber on the tyre? It looks odd, does it, Bob, or am I imagining it?
Well, it does look a little strange. I'm just trying to work out why it would be locking so easily. Perhaps just because
it's properly on the thing and tightened up, I don't know. It looks as though it's sitting out at the bottom. It's got a lot of negative on that.
It obviously has a big flat spot on it there now. Be interesting to see if Brock heads for the pits at the conclusion of this lap.
All right now, but if it was not properly on, and that's hard to imagine, it of course would have moved about now and be sitting more squarely. But as I say, very hard to imagine. But it just did to me seem to be at a curious angle there. But
well, Brock's pressing on, so obviously the field of the driver must be okay.
Yes, I'm sure Brock would stop if he thought that the wheel wasn't on properly.
And Dick Johnson heads for the pits. It's lap 60. That's 20 laps earlier than Johnson had expected. He's going to go for four tyres changed. And now will probably take more than 1 churn of fuel.
A practice stop yesterday took them 27 seconds.
It'll be interesting to see if they put the really soft tyres on.
And
Johnson's
the second place man is also in the pits. Jim Richards also on lap 60. Now Richards, and there goes Johnson out of the pits, a time less than 30 seconds, probably about 28 seconds. Richards, however, had hoped to get through the race without a pit stop, and in fact lying some 25 seconds on the road behind Johnson. His chances of winning this event are disappearing rapidly while he sits in the pits.
Well, Johnson's got his lead and is building it because he's out on the track now. They're on the same lap. And so, unless Richards can produce some magic in tyre compound that's going to give him a better lap time, he's really trailing from here on.
So we have to ask the question, was the idea of getting through without a pit stop simply gamesmanship on Frank Gardner's behalf, or has something seriously gone wrong with the BMW? Either it's getting too much tyre wear or it's using significantly far too much fuel.
Well, the thing is, with that sort of a game plan, you have to decide fairly early, and the driver's the only one that can really decide whether to go for broke and stop and put tyres on, or take it really easy and try and make it last.
It was always going to be dependent on their lap times, and if they felt that they were trailing too much and that they could pick up some valuable time with the new set of tyres, then they would make the stop.